So on August 1st, 1834, Africans in Jamaica were given their freedom from colonial rule. However, they had to continue their living conditions because of a apprenticeship, which was a 6-year timeline where they had to remain with their former slave masters or owners and work 40 hours a week for their bed, for their food, for whatever clothes that their owners didn't want. So they still maintain their slavery. They just didn't call it slavery. They just say you're working for these conditions. They had to work that 40-hour week, and it's only after those 40 hours were done, they were able to work extra for their own freedoms. So during this time, our ancestors were continuous with their warfare. They never gave up, they never gave in, they never took the foot off the necks of the colonialists. They organized rebellions which showed how great our ancestors were in warfare. Because of this, they forced the treaties to be signed, and on August 1st, 1838, the slavery of the Africans from the British colonies was officially recognized, and our ancestors were officially emancipated. So there was another famous quote by the Honourable Marcus Messiah Garvey, which was immortalized in Bob Marley's song, Redemption Song. He said, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but himself can free our minds." It means it's up to you to free yourself from the shackles. We may be free walking around physically, but you have the mind of a slave. It's up to us to emancipate ourselves and free ourselves from the mental slavery. A people without knowledge of their past history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots. In a time of today where there is so much external influence, and the children especially are being influenced by external forces, we must teach our children and also learn ourselves where we come from, because we're laying that foundation, grounding ourselves with our roots of where we come from, our origin and our culture, so we know who we are, we know where we come from, we know the standards that we set, we know what we are and we know what we are not, more importantly. Now this is where it gets a bit real, and we have to come back down and look at our own realities of today. Although today we celebrate the contributions and sacrifices of our ancestors, we have to look at the realities of today and our own situation, because we are not free. So we as melanated people do not have an infrastructure of our own. We do not have a government for ourselves that we can go to for safety. We are at a disadvantage. We are targeted, we are divided, we are disrespected, we are judged. And all up to today, we are still discriminated against. It's the Western mindset that has seeped into many of our people, and these people are in positions of power, unfortunately, so they are governing the rest of the people. The slave master is not going to give you the keys to your freedom. They're not going to do that. So the people in power, they get those melanated people who look like us physically, but mentally they have the westernized mindset of selfishness and ego and these low vibrational states, because they can be controlled by money and power, and they corrupt them. They look like us, but they're not for us. This is how Marcus Garvey was brought down. This is how the greatness of the UNIA was brought down. They were infiltrated by people that look like us but work for other people, done by J. Edgar Hoover at the time. The same way Malcolm X was murdered in front of his people by somebody that looked like him in front of his wife and children. They get people to infiltrate our places, and they're not for us. Something that we must know and learn from. If we only focus on celebrating our ancestry and what has been done in the past, we fail to acknowledge our present. If we fail to acknowledge our present conditions, situations that we're in, we're going to leave the world in a worse state for our children and our future generations. So we need to focus on what we're doing today, fight for our freedoms of today, adapt to the times of today, and emancipate ourselves truly today, and then celebrate ourselves, not just our ancestors, And then spiritually, our ancestors can then find peace and finally be at rest. We celebrate today and inspire the future generations, and then leave this world in a better state for our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come, because we've been too long fighting for survival. So you find yourself in limbo because you're not present. When you are present, you're focusing on what is now. You can see what's happening. Emancipate yourself from the mental slavery and free your mind. See what's happening now and go and be great. Draw for them inspiring energies of your greats and go and do the best you can of today, because we need to reclaim our power. We need to reclaim our sovereignty, because we are sovereign beings. Every single one of us is a sovereign being, created with a soul purpose and a soul mission. I think part of the meaning of life, as profound as this is just to be, just to live, but also find out what your purpose is and find out what your mission is. That's part of life. Love to the culture, love to our ancestors, love to our history is fully acknowledged, and we try to impart that within ourselves with that wisdom and pass it on to future generation, because this also is what the Rasta man teaches us. So love to Rastafari, hail up the King of all kings, Haile Selassie each time, which Marcus Garvey did prophesize he would be the black man's redemption. In itself, Marcus Garvey foretold it. Another reason why we love Marcus Messiah Garvey, Black Moses. So we're going to end on a quote from Black Moses himself. Never forget that intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. Therefore, remove yourself as far as possible from ignorance and seek as far as possible to be intelligent. Love from the eye each time. Give thanks to the greats. Our children's futures depend on what we do today. Love each time. Blessed.